What's going on, guys, and welcome back. So we're getting close to CYAC release, Cyberstorm Access. It comes out early May. If you're not ready for it, you better get ready, because we're getting a few new strategies that are sure to make some waves and some support for some others, along with a couple pretty neat staple cards. So I decided let's go ahead and drop a tier list now so you guys can kind of see what's coming if you don't already know, and then better prepare for it. We also have a hand trap tier list post CYAC coming as well. We did just do our ban list that we deserve video. It is our prediction where I actually tried to be unbiased. Unfortunately, Thunder Dragon Colossus is staying banned. No matter how bad I want that card back, this is the first time I've not said there's a chance it'll come back, so now Konami will probably do it just to spite me. But today we're here to talk about the tier list. I will go over some of these new strategies in depth in another video if there is any demand for it, or if you guys would like, so let me know down below. Additionally, we have a few other things planned, so stick around. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and yeah, all that good stuff. I was going to say comment again, but we just did. Elephant in the room. Until a ban list hits it, and depending how the ban list hits it, Kashtira is the best deck. Another deck needs to come out and prove wrong. Another deck needs to come out and take this spot. I'm not just going to move them down unless they get absolutely destroyed like Tier Laments did on a ban list, but that is not going to happen. If we get a ban list, go check out the video. Mind Hacker is pretty much a lock to get banned. Other than that, I don't think there's any guarantees that they do anything, because the deck is actually a pretty fair tier 1 deck without the 5 zone lock and Mind Hacker. So Kashtira is going to be a tier 1 deck. This is, again, like I just said, pending a ban list, but depending on what the ban list would do, they could still stay tier 1. Trap Tricks, where do I want to put them? Well, they could benefit from something I think may happen on that ban list, but again, staying on topic of this video, I think that they're a very good rogue strategy. When it comes down to it, I think they're the second best trap deck of the format. I think Labyrinth is still better, and I don't know, I just feel like trap decks seem to suffer from the same thing, especially when there's multiple in a format. People are just too ready for them, and that naturally means that they're just not going to do as well. Rika, Sun, Avalon, we saw this deck gaining a little steam. However, I'm going to leave it as rogue, because it seems like early in formats people just forget about this deck, don't play the deck, don't care about the deck, and then it picks up as the format moves. We'll see if they use it early on, or if it's one that emerges after a couple weeks once again. But keep Rika, Sun, Avalon on your radar as a rogue deck that you're going to want to know what it does. Branded Despia, where do we put them? Their fall from grace, they were like trying to compete for that top spot, but Kashtira ultimately pulled away. Then Sprite slowly bumped them down, and it seemed like they just kept falling and falling, and a big reason for that isn't going to get fixed post CYAC either. It's the fact that they have so much engine but like little to no room for tech cards. And if they do add those tech cards, then the engine kind of suffers, and I don't think this deck can balance both very well. If you're in like a 2 to 4 deck format, Despia is insane. If you're in a 5, 6, 7 deck format where you really need to be able to have a plethora of options to hit these other decks, Despia suffers because of the lack of room for the versatility. So because of that, I don't think we're going to be in a much different format. I think it's going to be pretty open and quite a few viable strategies. So I think Despia, by that fault, is going to suffer and be a tier 2 strategy. Pearly, where are we going to put the little fluffy guys? I felt kind of bad putting them here. I usually want to see decks perform before I move them up too much, and between the three, there's Pearly, Manadome, and Super Heavy Samurai that are getting support. I think Pearly's the most likely to flop. I could definitely see them being a really good tier 2, but something tells me they're going to be right on that back end of 1.5, so I do want to leave them up here. But out of those 3 decks, I do think that it's the one most likely to flop. However, Super Heavy Samurai, not to talk about it a little too soon, they are getting hyped up so much that it feels like this is the one that could also inevitably just falter, because like I've seen so many videos on it, I'm seeing so many people playing it and testing it and hand looping and doing all these crazy things, and I don't know, it just seems like sometimes that deck just, when it comes time for release and people are ready for it, it just doesn't. However, I do think in this fact it will, and Super Heavy Samurai will be a strong tier 1.5 deck, and again, Pearly probably the one out of the three that has the highest chance of falling down, but we're going to leave them right there for now. Dark World, kind of like Rico, is picking up steam towards the end of the format, and I could see them like creeping into the back of tier 2, but for now we're going to have them as Rogue, because a big part of a tier list, people will say, well, that deck's only doing good because of its representation. That is part of a tier list. It is how well the deck performs, how well the deck converts, and representation. People want to bring up Kashtira topping so much at the YCSs, but at the same time, at least in London, Kashtira had 19% entry to the event, but 41% of top cut. So they over doubled their representation from total to top, which is pretty crazy still. It's not like they were 19% and then took up 19%, because it's kind of inevitable. You have a bunch of entries, you're going to have a bunch of tops, but they overperformed. Dragon Link. Where do we think dragons go? This deck seems like it comes in spurts, like even early in a format, late in a format, it's like, oh, multiple Dragon Links win. Then all of a sudden 2 weeks go by and no Dragon Links top. And then all of a sudden you get Dragon Link that tops 4 regionals and wins 2. And then all of a sudden it disappears again. It's like Dragon Link is that deck that can just always pop up. It is always around. Konami loves their Dragon support, and I don't think it's really going to go anywhere. Our first Sprite strategy of many, I did kind of slim it down and just did 3 top ones and then kind of group the rest into the rest of the Sprite variants. Sprite Twin, where do I think Sprite Twin goes? Personally, I think that it's a good tier 1.5 deck. I like what the Twin engine adds to Sprite, and giving it a little bit less linear playstyle, less or harder to disrupt it. However, it does feel like it lacks a little, and I think we saw that at YCS London, and I guess all the YCSs, but I think adding that Runic engine in too, so Sprite Twin Runic, I think is the superior Sprite variant moving into the next format, and it is going to be a tier 1 strategy. Drytron, where should they end up? Well, I don't know. It's weird because they're not the best combo deck, and like they don't have the best board going first. They're not the best going second, but yet it seems like the deck is so crazy when it goes off that you have to talk about it, and you have to remember that Drytron's a deck. But there's also at that same time a very good chance that you won't play against any Drytron in a regional, and so it's one of those things where you better know what they do and be ready, because the deck's been out for like 3 years now almost, or 2 years, 3 years going on, and if you're not, you're going to be punished, and I guess if you're not, there's also a chance you won't be, but it's not that hard to go watch some videos, play test a little bit, and get a handle on how the deck functions. EXO Sisters. I was kind of debating where I want to put them. I think it's going to be another rogue strategy. They seem to do decent, especially in formats where Dimension Shifter, spoiler alert, is insane. I think D Shifter is going to be very, very good this format, because I think Kashtira is not going to be that 30-40% of events. I think it's going to be probably closer to the 10 to 20%, and you can kind of afford in that case, if you're playing 9 rounds and you only play like 2 mirrors, you might want Shifter main decked, whereas before, if you're going to play 4 or 5 mirrors, you definitely don't want a main deck Shifter. I could see Shifter being a main deck card again in things like Kashtira and EXO Sisters, so I do think that's a big reason to mention them, because they can run D Shifter, so keep them on your radar. Labyrinth, which was once the clear-cut third best deck, coming out of Photon Hypernova format, Sprite quickly passed them. Mech ended up passing them, and they just kept going down, down, down. I'm going to leave them at tier 2. Kind of mentioned it with trap tricks when there's multiple trap decks in a format and people are so ready for back row. It just has hard counters that it really can't protect itself against. I mean, Open Judgment, okay, wow, never would have thought about doing that, thanks. Naturia Runic is our next one. Outside of the Sprite Twin Runic, I think that this is the best Runic deck out there. I'm going to leave them at tier 1.5. I predicted that this deck would win YCS London. I was wrong. It made the finals in the other 2 YCSs, however, so I was pretty close on my predictions overall. I said Kestur would win the LA and Bogota, and Naturia Runic would win over in London. However, it did have 2 finals appearances, but it did not get the win. But I think that it's a very good tier 1.5 deck. Shifter being in the format could kind of hinder it a little bit, but that can be said about a lot of these decks, so I'm not too worried about it at the moment. Another deck that can main deck Shifter so easily, Floanderies. I think they might sneak kind of back in, but a lot of people, like, do people actually enjoy playing Flunder? I don't know if they do. You know, it's definitely, the deck is still insane. It still has D-Shifter, unless a ban list does it. It still has Harpy Featherstorm, which is insane unless a ban list does something to it. So it's still got some of the best cards in the game at its disposal, and it's a very strong deck. Doesn't care about the extra deck. Doesn't care about special summoning. There's just so many advantages it has. However, it's kind of a straightforward deck, and there's not a whole lot, you know, that you have to look out for, because it's, you know what to do, you know where to interrupt. You know, imperming the summon. If they have the quick play, they have the quick play, or you just hold the imperm for the Empen if you want to go that way. Otherwise, ashing the first summon. You know, map helps them play through. Obviously, if they hard drew the Dreaming Town, if they couldn't get to it, they can still normal summon, just start popping off again. However, I just feel like the deck runs out of gas too fast against most of the better decks. Heroes. Well, if Shifter's good and Dark Law by nature is pretty good, wouldn't the deck that just throws Dark Law out like nothing be pretty good too? And Heroes has such a nostalgic deck. I think people love to see it. Not many people love to play it. However, I do think that it is a pretty good deck moving forward. Sprite Melfi. I'm going to put them right above Sprite Twin, maybe above Super Heavy Samurai, at least till Samurai proves that it's better. So Sprite Melfi, I do really like what it offers, getting the extra negate, having the extra cards. You know, the Arc Light is insane for the negate or the floodgate, or force them to go battle phase just to beat over it so they can start playing again. And I guess the downside is a little more resource heavy, and you don't really necessarily lose space because it's just 2 cards in your deck. But it seems like the follow-up is a little bit lacking in this build compared to other Sprite decks. The last of the 3 new ones, I really want to see what they do, which build comes out on top. Is it going to be a more pure focus build? Are we going to see some crazy combinations? Manadome, I'm excited for this. I really want to see how it develops into the format, but I do think this one's going to be a tier 1 deck. You know, typically it's not uncommon to see a deck come out of core sets and be a very, very strong competitor. And out of Super Heavy Samurai, Pearly, and Manadome, I think Manadome has the best chance to do so. So go check out your cards, see what they do, test online, watch videos, and be ready for this deck. Again, we will cover all 3 of those decks at a later time for those who are interested, if you would like. Marin says, I have mixed feelings about this because they had like 6-7 tops this past format that we're about to leave. I mean, I guess we have 3 weeks left in it, but it seems like it's the same 2 or 3 guys getting all of these tops. So how much is it actually the deck and the pilot? However, they did earn the right to at least be talked about. Mech. I debated where to put them. I really do like what Mech offers. The ability to play like 16 hand traps or going second cards, to play essentially 9 copies of Circular, which is insane. Pot of Desires they can take advantage of. However, Shifter getting mained is going to hurt. the variety in the format, I think, helps Mech, and it lets them do a little bit better because they can main those 16 hand traps, which if you have 16 hand traps, you can cover a very wide variety of decks, so you're more likely to be prepared for the open field, whereas a deck like Despia, where you only get like 3 to 6 if you're lucky tech spots, unless you get like really creative or cut cards and make your engine weird, you just run out of that space like in Despia, whereas Mech, you just have so much space for it, and then you small world your Signet mining and your circulars being your one card combos. So I do really like what Mech has to offer. Sword Soul, a deck that also kind of like Labyrinth, going down towards the end of last format. I think they're still a good tier 2 deck. I wonder if people are tired of Sword Soul and just there's other better decks and newer decks, and people just moved on and decided to play something else. So why would I keep playing Sword Soul if it's just not as fun to me as this new deck, which also happens to be better? Being said, I do think Sword Soul is still a good tier 2 strategy. Also down in tier 2, I'm going to just put Sprite right here. All other Sprite variants, Pure Sprite, Adventure Sprite, Tri-Brigade Sprite, any of them other Sprite variants are in tier 2. I'm not going to divulge into it because there's at least 5 more of them here, but I'm not going to have like just Sprite. You know, there's all other Sprite variants. I don't think there's, maybe you could argue Adventure Sprite could go up to tier 1.5. However, I think that these two primarily are going to overshadow it by quite a bit. And the final one, tier limits. Yeah, the deck is still playable and people are still messing with it. I'm interested to see with a few more cards coming out, not that anything directly helps it, but more cards, bigger card pool, people get creative, people come up with things and they experiment. We've seen insane combos and just pile decks and everything like that under the sun. Where does tier end up? Maybe they fall off and completely disappear. However, they had like 7-8 tops into the format so far, and the deck is still there. The deck is still playable despite so many cards being limited. I'm just curious to see if tier limits can get another top or if they finally fall off, because see you later, tier 0 format. We're finally moving past Photon Hypernova format. This is your CYAC format. Let me know what you guys think of my list down below. What's too high? What's too low? Out of the 3 new decks, what do you expect to be the best? Out of the Sprite decks, what do you expect to be the best? Oh, and did you guys check out the playmats for the regionals at CYAC? They look nice. Go out, get your tops, get them today. They're pretty insane. Thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, take care.